Welcome back to the channel. I'm Maddie Carroll. We've been talking about architecture, building a framework for a lived reality that actually belongs to you, not the social programming handed down to you. Today we're taking a deep look at the mechanics of state changes, moving from chaos to clarity. We are breaking this episode down into 3 distinct operational layers. First, establishing your internal baseline, the point of perfect stillness within motion, sitting right at the twilight zone between your waking intellect and the unmanifested potential of the dream state. Second, learning how to use the chaotic, high-speed friction of your outer life as the exact fuel needed to generate that internal calm. And third, how to weaponize that inner stillness to precisely direct and crystallize the motion of your external reality. Stop trying to find peace in a static location. Peace is an active baseline. Let's step into the architecture.
Popular meditation often emphasizes the pursuit of a permanent, motionless state of static peace. We are taught that the goal of the practice is to stop the mind. However, forcing absolute stillness on a biological system driven by motion leads to psychological stagnation. This resistance often manifests as physical shakiness and a mental state that collapses under external pressure. The 0 and 1 framework coordinates these forces by lining pure, unmanifested potential, the 0, with the constrained, observable matter of the conscious mind, the 1. A rigid beam relies on being perfectly centered and motionless. When it is hit by a single force, it shatters. A rapidly spinning disc on a vertical mast maintains stability through continuous, subtle motion. In this model, motion is stability. The disc stays upright by performing constant microcorrections under its center of gravity. It is a state of internal synchronization occurring at a high frequency. This dynamic balance creates a state of active readiness. Rather than a dead stop, you cultivate the constant motion required to govern the self. Transitioning from the conceptual to the physical requires tuning the brain's frequencies to sync the 0 and the 1. Your left hemisphere, or the emissary, operates primarily in active beta and alpha states. Its function is to categorize reality into rigid binary judgments, effectively acting as a firewall against unmanifested potential. This chart identifies the theta state, between 4 and 8 Hz. It is the biological bridge between wakefulness and sleep. High-frequency beta and alpha waves maintain the analytical firewall, but the slower theta waves represent a shift. The left brain relaxes, leaving the subconscious open. Because the subconscious takes all inputs literally, holding negative thoughts at this threshold programs the majority of the mind that controls the body. The theta frequency is the biological window where the emissary is bypassed. This allows for metanoia, the deliberate cognitive exercise of changing the mind's internal programming. Execute an immediate system diagnostic on your current state. Pause and observe. Scan your body. Observe the exact physical tension you are holding in your muscles right now. Listen to your internal monologue. Identify the specific left brain judgments, like "this is strange" or "I am doing this incorrectly," that are running in the background. This intellectualizing is the emissary firewall in action, actively resisting the descent into the theta state. You cannot enter the theta baseline without first identifying the system's current suppressed state. Locking into the theta baseline requires a 3-step protocol designed to bypass the analytical mind and ground the hardware. Step 1 is bare receptivity. Activate global attention by observing sensory data without assigning moral judgments or categories to it. Step 2 is structural alignment. Use deliberate breath control to still the body's automatic movements and eliminate physical interference. Step 3 is focused awareness. Withdraw your attention from external narratives and maintain single-pointed concentration at the center of the mind. Executing and holding this dynamic balance bridges the 0 and the 1, establishing the state of active readiness required for internal governance.
So that is the mechanics of the baseline, an active stillness, dialed into the twilight zone of your mind where raw programming happens. But let's be entirely direct. You cannot stay in the padding of a dark room forever. Real life doesn't operate in a vacuum. It operates in the noise, the pressure, and the 40-hour weeks of a chaotic reality. If your framework requires absolute silence around you to maintain peace within you, it isn't a sovereign system, it's a fragile simulation. We don't run from the friction. We change our relationship to it. Let's look at how to take the chaotic motion of the outside world and make it
Static
spin the
peace
disc.
is a psychological state of being frozen, a condition where a system becomes unable to assert its will because it is attempting to resist external pressure through immobility. Attempting to hold a dynamic system in this state triggers a systemic failure. Because suppressed kinetic energy cannot be destroyed, it manifests as physical tremors, internal shakiness, and eventual psychological collapse. In a universe defined by ceaseless vibration, the pursuit of a motionless state represents an operational error. Stasis is inherently unsafe for a high-frequency system. This schematic compares two structural responses to stress. The rigid vertical beam on the left attempts to maintain its form through resistance. As pressure vectors increase, it vibrates and begins to crack. The horizontal spinning disk on the right employs a different mechanical logic. When pressure strikes the disk, the architecture absorbs the kinetic energy. Instead of fracturing the material, the external force is converted directly into rotational velocity. This model allows for a technical redefinition of stillness that accounts for the reality of constant motion. Absolute stillness is experienced as the highest possible rate of vibration. The system achieves internal calm by aligning its frequency with the infinite vibration of the source, effectively neutralizing lower, distracting rhythms. This optimal state is termed active readiness. It is a disciplined, calm state of focused awareness where internal stability is maintained through continuous, conscious motion. Within the sovereign eclectic framework, external chaos functions as kinetic fuel. It is the raw material required to maintain the system's momentum. True sovereignty utilizes the motion of outer reality to power the internal baseline. When the internal disk is spinning at its optimal frequency, attempts to control or restrict the external environment become unnecessary. Building this engine requires defining pressure as raw mechanical energy. This energy is provided by variables ranging from material constraints like financial stress to the subtle friction of societal dogmas and culturally imposed inhibitions. This close-up shows the disk interacting with chaotic energy particles. In a static system, these cause structural damage. In our model, friction applies torque to the edge, accelerating rotational speed and increasing system stability. This interaction is governed by the principle of rhythm, a law stating that all things manifest a measured back-and-forth movement. Rhythm functions as a continuous pendulum-like swing between poles, moving between action and reaction, or rise and fall. This metallic pendulum demonstrates the immense momentum of universal rhythms. In the human mind, this manifests as the inevitable swing of moods, feelings, and emotions. Resisting this rhythmic swing guarantees systemic exhaustion. If you allow yourself to be passively swung by the pendulum, you remain trapped in its lower frequency oscillations. The law of neutralization provides the bypass. The master uses the friction of the swing to polarize the ego at a higher plane of consciousness, allowing the rhythmic pendulum to swing beneath them on the unconscious plane. Cosmologically, we see this requirement for pressure in the mechanics of gravity. Gravity provides the sovereign constraint necessary to bind polarities into stable forms. It is the mechanical pressure that forces pure, chaotic potential into structured matter via nuclear fusion. Friction and pressure are mandatory inputs for existence. Without external constraints, the system lacks the mechanical energy required to force transcendence or maintain dynamic balance. Systematizing this intake of energy requires correcting the common misconception of the Taoist concept Wu Wei. Wu Wei is frequently misinterpreted as a state of passivity or laziness, a total withdrawal from action. Alan Watts, seen here, framed the Taoist tradition as one of intense observation. Unlike bookish scholastics, the Taoists studied how natural phenomena worked, using the Tao to perfect manual skills by seeking the line of least resistance. From a mechanical perspective, Wu Wei is high-level systemic vector alignment. It is the skill of not forcing. This translates to judo mechanics, the practice of using an opponent's own momentum to achieve a desired outcome. Observe the fluid dynamics of the watercourse way. When water encounters a rock, it doesn't push through. It yields, accelerating around the obstacle. Yielding force Y meets attacking force X to create a neutralized vector. By yielding to the direction of an external force, the system absorbs and redirects that momentum. This process neutralizes the detrimental vibration of an external attack. The system remains stable because it refuses to offer a rigid surface for chaos. These Tai Chi practitioners demonstrate this principle in motion. They achieve maximal effect with minimal effort by integrating body and mind, using the mind to move vital energy rather than relying on muscular tension. The practitioner maintains their center of gravity by refusing to provide a fixed target. Every external tilt is a signal for a necessary sovereign correction. Motion itself becomes the stability. When a system uses Wu Wei to ground and assimilate external force, it removes the internal resistance that leads to fracture. Maintaining the high rotational velocity of the internal disk requires total systemic coherence. Any internal friction creates a drag that slows the spin and allows external pressure to become destructive. The primary source of this friction is the Cartesian split, the mechanical drag caused by a mind attempting to stand outside of its own actions. In this feedback loop, we see the inefficiency of dualism. The worker and the task are separated by a gap of communication delay, representing the subject attempting to monitor itself. This separation causes severe psychological drag. By attempting to stand aside from your involvement in nature, you dry up the roots of your spontaneous action. The system becomes snarled by infinite checks and balances. The agent becomes a one, frozen by the frustration of trying to control the uncontrollable. The mechanical solution to this internal friction is the autotelic flow state. High-pressure environments trigger self-forgetfulness, temporarily removing the self-construct that interrupts action. As the system's rotational speed increases, the distance between nodes shrinks. Under total commitment, the worker and task merge into a single seamless loop. At this optimal speed, the artificial split between subject and object is eliminated. There is no longer a distinction between the doer and the doing. Eliminating this dualism removes the final source of internal resistance, allowing energy to move through the system with zero lag. This is the completed architecture of a sovereign system designed for high-pressure environments. Polarity provides the kinetic fuel, Wu Wei ensures the vector alignment, and the autotelic flow state dissolves internal friction. In this macro view, the disk rotates at such a high frequency that it appears perfectly still. It functions as a stable compass, navigating through external chaos by converting every collision into further momentum. This state of active readiness is the internal calibration that allows the self to perceive external threats without emotional panic. The operational mandate is to stop attempting to freeze the world, and instead use the world to spin the disk. Outer chaos functions as the mechanical engine required to generate inner stillness. By converting environmental friction into internal torque, the system achieves a state of dynamic balance that is the foundation of true self-governance.
Now your system is fully online. You've established the internal baseline, and you've learned how to harness external friction to spin the disk rather than let it tear you apart. But holding onto a high-frequency charge without directing it is useless. A sovereign architect doesn't just sit there quietly balancing energy forever. A sovereign architect builds. This is where the loop completes. We are moving from the intake to the output. We are taking that pressurized, unmanifested zero-point stillness inside you and turning it into a focused lens. It is time to stop reacting to the momentum of the world and start using your conscious intent to precisely shape and dictate the motion of your own reality. Let's look at the mechanics of projection.
State your operational parameters. We're beginning this briefing immediately. No pleasantries, no introductory fluff. You're here to understand the mechanics of reality extraction. This explainer covers the 0-1 framework. Specifically, we're breaking down how to weaponize the zero-point baseline to strictly direct and shape external motion.
Look at the objective. Treat this entire briefing as a direct operations manual for shaping external reality. We're not sitting around discussing philosophy here. We are detailing the exact mechanical blueprint for taking pure, unmanifested potential and physically locking it down into defined, articulated matter.
The core architecture here is absolutely crucial. The 0-1 framework is your engine. The 0 is the unknowable source, that profound stillness and pure unmanifested potential. The 1 is the final articulated reality. As the sovereign alchemist, you are the active director of this energy. You are the bridge. Your conscious will translates the raw data of the zero into the lived physical reality of the one. You are not a passenger. You are the operator. Section 1. The 0-point baseline. Understand this right now. The nature of zero is not just some empty void. It is the unknowable source. Yes, it's profound stillness, but grasp this mechanical truth. Absolute stillness is actually the fastest possible vibration. It's the infinite foundation of all reality, where time literally does not exist. But to access this baseline, you have to mechanically neutralize the detrimental, lower frequency vibrations in your own consciousness first. Section 2. The Manifestation Engine. Get this through your head. Manifestation is not wishful thinking. It is a highly precise, energetic transition. First, you anchor yourself in the zero, the pure potential. Second, you apply deliberate conscious intent, willpower. Third, use that willpower to mechanically slow down the vibrational frequency of that energy. By dropping that frequency, step 4 happens. You condense the unmanifested potential into defined, articulated matter, the one. It's a mechanical reduction of vibration. Nothing more, nothing less. And we have systemic validation for this going back centuries. The Hermetic teachings lay it out clearly. Matter, energy, and mind are the exact same substance. The only difference is their rate of vibration. So by controlling the rate of vibration through focused intent, you literally control the physical manifestation of matter. Let's ground this esoteric principle in biological reality. The left hemisphere of your brain, what we call the emissary, is trapped in a narrow, binary, winner-takes-all categorization. It's always seeking utility and manipulation. But to operate this engine, you have to anchor in the right hemisphere, the master. The master utilizes global attention. It perceives the holistic context without the obsessive need to dominate. This is the neurological seat of the observer.
Section 3. The lens of pure perception.
We have to ruthlessly separate flawed perception from stabilized perception. On the left, you see gnosis. We're defining this as the mere collection of facts, just the regurgitation of data relying on that narrow emissary-driven attention. It's rigid, it's fragile. On the right, nous. Nous is pure, undistracted perception. It utilizes the global attention of the master hemisphere to establish an empty, stabilized internal center. Stop collecting facts. Anchor yourself in pure perception. When you finally establish this empty baseline, your mind transforms into a perfect geometric lens. This stabilized center bypasses all those fragile, imagined orders, the societal myths built specifically to control you. It acts as a non-volatile backup for generational memory, actively preventing the controller bias of those in power. Most importantly, this perfect lens allows you to project an undistorted mental blueprint directly onto your physical environment. You aren't reacting to reality. You are collapsing reality outward from a stable core. Section 4. The Microcosm Loop. As within, so without. Look at the daily biological act of sleeping and waking. It perfectly visualizes the macrocosmic loop of universal creation. The universe constantly cycles between unmanifested energy and manifested matter. And so do you. You cycle between the unmanifested state of sleep, zero, and the articulated reality of your waking life, the one. Sleep is the cousin of death. Waking is rebirth. You're operating a micro-universe every 24 hours. Because of this continuous 0 to 1 to 0 loop, you have to operate as a star in the cosmic flow. When you enter that unmanifested state of zero during rest, you're harvesting deep, nonverbal data. Upon waking, you step into the role of the sovereign bridge. Your objective, take that harvested data and intentionally execute it. Force order onto your daily reality. Condense the zero into the one every single morning. Do not leave it to chance. Section 5. Weaponizing external motion. A sovereign individual absolutely rejects static peace. Listen to me. Static peace is a trap. It leads directly to stagnation, systemic fragility, and artificial constraints imposed by external controllers. The only correct operating state is active readiness. You must utilize stressors and disorder as data points to build system capacity. Foster anti-fragility. Maintain dynamic balance. You don't hide from the wind. You use it to power the turbine. Now, initiate the final execution phase. The recursive mediation loop. When you inevitably encounter a systemic destructive event, chaos or malignant aggression, deploy this protocol. You act as the mediator. Apply that transmutation of vibration we discussed to forcefully shift the polarity of the conflict from destructive to generative. At the exact same time, the observer within you documents the intervention neutrally, grounded in the eternal order. This completely neutralizes controller bias and forces the surrounding environment to align with cosmic law.
I'm leaving you with a direct challenge. Force your own accountability right now. Are you operating the engine? Are you intentionally condensing pure potential into articulated matter? Or are you simply a passenger, just bouncing around inside the fragile, imagined orders created by someone else? The mechanics of the 0-1 framework are laid out in front of you. Integrate this protocol immediately. End of briefing.
That completes the circuit. Let's look at what you've actually engineered here. You stopped treating peace like a fragile, static hiding place. You found your active baseline in the twilight zone of your own mind. You took the friction, the chaos, and the pressure of your daily grind, and you repurposed it as kinetic fuel to accelerate your internal system. And finally, you focused that pressurized stillness to consciously dictate and project your own reality. This is the loop of the sovereign architect. You are no longer a bricklayer blindly responding to scripts written by a society out of control. You are the star and the transmitter in your own space. Stop reacting to the world. Establish the baseline, use the friction, and project the architecture. Stay limber, stay awake. See you on the next journey.